I've been wanting to have since Sundance, where your film Get Out premiered, sort of a movie that you somehow managed to keep the lid on. And now, what would this be, 10 months later? Everybody knows what Get Out is. It was a phenomenon. I hope you guys have seen it. That clip gave a taste, but it was kind of...
Thank you, Lee. How about this? Has anybody not seen the movie?
This is the shame. Raise your shameful hands now. Yeah.
Leave.
Right.
Leave. Thank you. No, we don't want. Yeah, we're gonna be spoiling. Spoilers.
Or they can bypass the whole studio system and just give you like $4 on their way out.
$4. That'd be nice.
So I mean, Get Out was your directorial debut, but it sort of is in addition to a very successful career you've had as a comic, as a sketch artist with Key and Peele, and the kind of common subtext to all your work is commentary on kind of race relations and kind of like it's the race conversation in a way, and it's really and in your upcoming work with Monkeypaw, your production company, it's really about diversity of voices and giving a voice to stories that we haven't been hearing from artists we haven't been hearing from, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's sort of why we're in these chairs today, why you're in this chair, and why you're talking to me, a white guy, about this whole thing. Let's start with Get Out, because it's the phenomenon you've had this year, and it's in a way I think through a genre movie that's kind of the Trojan horse by which you were able to kind of sneak a conversation or a satire about race in front of millions of audiences. Was that the way you thought of it though, or was because I know you just wanted to make this kind of movie, a thriller as well.
It started with wanting to make the genre entertainment, wanting to make the thriller. My love of the cinema, my love of boundary-pushing cinema, but most importantly, my love of movies that are real movies you have to come see with a group, you have to watch with an audience to really get the full impact.
Right.
That communal experience of how we experience story together, laugh together, scream together, all of that. That is, for me growing up, the theater was my church in a way. Mm-hmm. That's where I went to experience my neighbors.
No, I know what you mean. And those two, you've been working in comedy until that film.
Yeah.
And a horror movie, and in both cases, it's something where it's like you feed off the energy in the room.
Yeah.
Like each screening is its own unique one-off in a way.
Yeah.
It's like, and to watch these things at home is possible, but it's not the same. So certainly to be in that, screening at Sundance when it's an unknown quantity and we're all just kind of like don't know which way it's going to go is the same experience I think all the theatrical audiences had. I mean, you really, maybe that's why the secrecy, is that so that you kind of preserve that moment for them to share, the audience to share in a room, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mean the secrecy surrounding Get Out?
Around the film, I mean, we knew a little bit about its existence,
yeah.
But
it wasn't really a secret. It started as something that, obviously we wanted to protect the reveals in the movie, but
the trailer does give the setup, I guess, is that
gives the setup.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, when the movie came out, to be quite frank, we didn't necessarily predict what would happen. Mm-hmm. So we were in a place where there wasn't a comp for this movie. There wasn't something to be like, well, this is gonna end up, best case scenario, it'll feel like this movie, worst case, it'll do like this. No, it's a completely unique story. So I don't think there was a full understanding of any sort of this is something that has to be guarded or protected. I think the next one probably a bit more. But to address your question about the message and where the social part of it came in, for me, And this started with my comedy career, as you brought up. It's and that started many years before Key and Peele. It was Mad TV before that. Before that, it was years in Chicago and Amsterdam, just doing sketch and improv. And that was like that. That was the period where I was exploring the art form of comedy, of genre, and message aside, I was trying to make people laugh, trying to get that reaction from the crowd. And what I would find over time, workshopping and again, every night with an audience, you can gauge how well you did. You have direct feedback in the form of laughter or not from the audience. Over time, you begin to realize that truth is what works. Mm-hmm. So it's not about kind of going just for something. It's not about going for anything specifically except something that rings true to an audience and is something that you haven't seen before. Because of course, if you do the same old joke, the audience doesn't laugh either. But time and time again, you realize the more truth you're hitting on that people haven't seen put in this way, the more successful it is. So that is, I almost end up at a message, and the same thing happened with Get Out. That writing, the writing of that movie started as me trying to make my favorite horror thriller that's never been made before.
Right.
And halfway through writing that project was when I realized what it was actually about.
Interesting. So I almost would have, my thesis, the sort of Trojan horse idea is the other way around, that it starts with that, message and kind of like, how do you sneak it by someone? But it's clear that you're, a devotee of horror and genre cinema from the movie, from the winks and the lifts and the kind of references that are kind of woven throughout, And just from the skill level at which you start. You're a student of horror movies, clearly,
Well, and that's, I think there is part of what I knew could be novel about this approach is the fact that, very early on I said, okay, I want to make that the thriller, I want to make the horror movie that the black audience has been asking for a long time, very vocally. Mm-hmm. Just kind of with that starting point, which by the way I thought was completely outrageous and completely impossible, but in my comedy career, I sort of observed this virtue that nothing is impossible. You can bite off the most difficult subject matter, and you can figure out how to frame a joke about it. You got to get the laugh. And I'm not saying I'm good enough to frame a joke about anything, but you have to believe that it's possible if you take enough care and you're representing the truth.
Now, just to be specific, are you saying broadly that you wanted to make a horror movie for black audiences, sort of that for us, by us sort of model, or more specifically where it is about the anxiety of the oppression of white people and the kind of the toxicity of that kind of dynamic that really became like this specific subject? Was that?
No, I think the first notion was the black audience goes to watch horror thriller, and we are typically very vocal about not getting the movie that we want.
Right.
Where the character, it's not even a crazy idea. We want the character to be as smart as we are.
Right.
The main character. We want the character. It goes back to this Eddie Murphy joke. Eddie Murphy might have Pryor, I think, did a very similar bit, but it was that a black family in a horror movie doesn't last very long. It wouldn't last very long if they were the leads of the horror movie. So the example he used was like Amityville Horror, white family comes into, I'm gonna completely butcher Eddie Murphy's amazing bit. White family comes into the house and hears "Get Out," and they're like, "Oh, well, that's weird, honey," whatever. It's my bad. black family comes into the same house. Hey, look, this is nice drapes, nice in. Get out. Too bad we can't stay, baby.
Right.
And so that missing archetype, that missing piece of representation. It turns out that's not just a movie that black people want.
Yeah.
We're just more vocal about it.
Yeah.
And we're not represented on the screen, so we have a distance. We have a forced distance from those narratives. But everybody wants characters to be smart. Yeah. It's just very, very, very hard to make a horror movie with smart protagonists. Yeah. That's the trick.
Yeah. No,
right?
I think about in Get Out, this is early enough in the movie and everyone's seen it, but the scene where he basically is trying his hardest to get out, it's sort of it's the critical scene, where he kind of discovers his girlfriend's involvement in all of this. And it's it's all about the keys and kind of like they're making their way out the door. And it's just, we're stuck in that moment for so long. Yeah.
It's
like,
you're
exploiting that.
I had to draw the whole,
his intelligence, he's doing the right thing, and everything that's kind of conspiring against, his ability to act on it.
It's so frustrating to watch somebody who we know is in a horror movie, but they don't know is in a horror movie. So, I had to create Chris, who is a character who was as capable at catching up to us as humanly possible. And there we can be like, okay, he's on the case. Mm-hmm. He's not doing stupid shit. Emotionally, even if he's got the instinct to run, he has that instinct. And I have that instinct. And we can emotionally understand why he doesn't leave, but at least he's not missing the hints that something's wrong here.
Right.
So to craft that narrative, that, like I say, it's hard to figure out ways to justify and keep a guy like that in this space. I took a cue from the Ira Levin stories, Rosemary's Baby and the Stepford Wives, which have this really lost art form of creeping towards this eventual dark twist, but doing it in just drips and pieces so that you can take one step into Weird Town and then spend time to justify why the character might interpret it as just normal old reality Weird Town, or maybe they're just being paranoid. Rosemary's Baby and the Stepford Wives are movies about the community making decisions for women's bodies behind their backs. Such a, lessons that we haven't learned, to this day, and we take steps backwards. But that's, perfect examples of movies about very serious identity, social issues, representation of a point of view and perspective, beautifully portrayed by Catherine Ross and Mia Farrow, of course.
Yeah, they make great models then for a, kind of like a social thriller, kind of like you've made here. It's interesting. This isn't Deliverance. This isn't, kind of like him walking into KKK territory or something. And I think the most powerful choice in the film is the idea that these are kind of, this is a liberal-seeming family, that is being critiqued, and in a way, it's like, that it's not then preaching to the choir. You're not inviting a bunch of liberal white people to sit in the same audiences, with a black audience and love this movie together. You're questioning the fabric of kind of, the way that even, the way that a conversation like this is held, where there are certain things that I have to, phrase right and all that kind of thing, and it's like, it's all about kind of like where the conversation is now, and it really, I think, makes it that much more potent, that I don't know if that's something that you could elaborate or riff on, though, the choice of, there's the easy target, the racist, and then there's the targets that you actually choose, whose, big secret is that they covet, what they perceive as some sort of black superiority or something in this case.
Yeah, I think again the sort of idea of doing the less expected version. There was a while when I was thinking about it, and I was, maybe the first year or something of conceiving of the movie where, the idea was you get to the house and it's the worst case scenario, right? It's red state guys, family with a grudge that shouldn't like him from the get-go, and but they're very welcoming, and that would be weird and like, well, wait a second, you're not acting like I thought you would. At some point I had the realization, what if I made the parents, and this again, following the sort of the Rosemary's Baby model, where the characters, the Cassavetes, right, the sort of quirky old couple that lives down the hallway, who are sort of disarmingly clumsy and like socially awkward and sweet and cute, and they're devil worshippers, but they're totally disarming. We start this movie on like, okay, there's no way these guys could be villains. So I love taking, that approach to villainry. Kathy Bates in Misery, right? She's a cute like aunt. She's great, right? And she's she's a psychopath. So I love that approach. But so when I made that decision, then kind of, like we were talking about, digging deeper, you find the insidious qualities that white liberals have. I sort of found that. I unpacked it and found, I think, the heart and soul and the gut punch of the movie, which is ultimately meant to say that, racism is a human problem, and the woke people know not to call themselves woke, if that makes any sense.
Right.
If we're not willing to look within ourselves and find our own battles with these things, then we're part of the system at place. And that's what this movie is about. The monster in this movie is a systemic thing. It's a systemic problem. The sunken place is a metaphor for it. But the idea is that...
So the sunken place is the sort of the zone that he goes into when he's under hypnosis.
That's right. That's kind of this state of marginalization that I feel like I never really quite had a word for. The state, it's that feeling of treading water, or like in a dream, you're walking on quicksand, you scream and you can't be heard. That is the metaphor for this system of racism. And I think while I was exploring this movie and creating this movie, I never used to be talking about the system. Like the system would be like, that's some militant shit. Like, yo, the system though. It's like, can you elaborate on what you mean? No, I'm talking about the system. I don't need to elaborate. But I really started using that word because I realized, look, the sunken place is the prison industrial complex. It's the dark hole that we throw black people in.
Right.
And
it's this slavery by another name idea, Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the assimilation of culture and bodies, which is, taking what the taking of the parts of black culture, black people that serve you, and disregarding the rest. That's slavery by a different name. It's the sunken place is the theater that black people are relegated to watch horror movies on the screen, and we can scream at the screen, but we're not going to get represented on the other side of that screen. It's all of these things. And the system is also internalized. So, you know, writing this movie brought me a lot of realizations, a lot of catharses during the project, just because I was chasing entertainment.
Right.
And because I was chasing entertainment, I was chasing truth.
Well, and the radical thing about it is because you are going to that place of criticizing, you know, the liberal, you know, people. There's a relevance to it suddenly that, you know, I mean, how was there any resistance to getting this movie made just by virtue of the subject matter? I mean, it's like, I feel like we're in a place now and we're moving toward a place where, you know, there is a possibility for large canvas, large audience critiques of the system, you know, whether it be finally movies that deal with slavery in any way, whether it's as entertainment, as critique. I mean, whether it's Tarantino or Steve McQueen who's looking at it, it's like these are movies that are kind of able to be made this decade. You know, it's like, where are we trying to get to? And I mean, like, to make it personal, I mean, what was the process like for, you know, getting this pitch produced?
The first and biggest hump I needed to get over was the internalized part of the system. I imagine that this movie could never get made.
So you self-censor. You're like,
yeah, I self-censor in the beginning. You know, I framed it to which may have ended up helping me in a weird way, because while I'm writing it, I'm thinking, this is for me. This isn't for anybody else. Who cares if anyone else sees this? This is going to make me a better writer. It's going to be fun to write. I'm going to get to watch this movie in my head. And so that was the first. And I think the reason I thought it wouldn't get made, I think, you know, are probably obvious, especially if you erase having seen it and sort of now can see the tone I was picturing. But the tone is tough to picture, which makes it a hard sell. And I think something I was very conscious of why this was new is that racism is a subject we've always approached with a certain reverence, which I think is a crutch. I think it's unnecessary to approach story with total and complete reverence all the time.
Reverence means in sort of like, that's for Oscar movies, or that's for Sidney Poitier movies, or that's for something
with
like,
drama,
you know, to be handled seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
Really drama.
Right.
You know, that's the lane for movies about race. And so to me, why are we taking something that important and taking it out of what I think are the most effective types of movies, the most engaging type of movies? Why shut that part of the conversation down? So to me, the thing that I really I was afraid of, and I hope to see more of, and what we're doing at Monkeypaw Productions is just this. You know, we're not doing dramas. We're focusing on movies that support underrepresented voices, but we're helping to support them and to guide them and to produce projects in genre, fun movies that can make money.
And how does that work? Does it come from like a circle of acquaintances where it's kind of like, you know, your network, or is it that people can come in cold and pitch a project to you, and that's something that you'd potentially be excited to see and get behind, or like what's that dynamic? It's
right now we're scouting the field, and we're finding artists that have been trying this and have been doing this and are interested in this idea, but haven't gotten the platform.
Like on their own initiative, or they've got something interesting just didn't manage to get it through almost
Yep.
either or. Yeah.
And we are we're also taking projects and shepherding projects, and I'm looking at this first year and first couple of years of Monkeypaw as one where I'm heavily involved in making sure everything is done properly, because it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult tightrope walk.
Can you, as we sort of wrap here, can you give us a taste of what's ahead? I mean, I know at least one, maybe two projects have kind of been announced, but just to give the room a sense of what to expect from you and from Monkeypaw.
Yeah, there's a project called Lovecraft Country, by a novel by a man named Matt Ruff, that is it takes place in the 50s in America. It is a black ensemble playing a family of science fiction geeks. And it is a real, the book, every chapter of the book is kind of a different short story involving our cast, a different member of our family. So there's an anthological element of it, but it really occupies a lot of the same space as Get Out, in that it takes very real, very horrific and uncomfortable, and the spectrum of racisms of Jim Crow America.
And it's contemporary?
No, it takes
Okay.
place in the 50s. And it sort of pairs those dynamics with Lovecraftian tales of horror and sci-fi and wonder. The showrunner is Misha Green, who is brilliant, and she wrote and show ran for Underground. We're partnering with A Bad Robot, which is obviously a dream come true. They're amazing, and we're developing that show for HBO.
Great.
So that's that is a very quintessential Monkeypaw project, And then there's a movie that I shouldn't talk too much, because he doesn't like for us to talk.
Talk a little.
So Spike, well, I'll say what's out there. Spike Lee is directing. This is a true story. It's based on a book called The Black Klansman. It's a project that I'm partnering with QC Entertainment and Blumhouse, who both produced
Get Out.
Get Out with me, and it's a true story, but somehow occupies the genre space as well, and it's one of these things that, to me, the best way I would describe it, it hits on the reasons Get Out hits and the reasons Hidden Figures hits, where it's like, how have I not heard this story? And Spike is, he was the first person that came to mind to direct it. I'm working on my own next project, writing, but so I felt like the next, if I couldn't do it.
And to get to work with Spike, yeah.
It's just I've learned so much dealing with him. It's amazing. He's such a pro in a way that I'm really floored by. I'm really awed by. I sent him the script, for example, and he called me the next day to talk about the script, and I'd probably had the script for a year and a half, and he knew the script better than I did. It was like, oh damn, this is that Spike Lee joint right here. So it's very cool. Yeah.
Awesome. That's all the time we have, but thank you for giving us a peek into what's ahead.